The smell of stale coffee and dust hit me the moment I opened the campaign office basement. Leo had insisted we clear out his old files before the re-election season, and, of course, I had said yes. After everything, I still trusted him. Well, I thought I did. My lungs protested against the lingering mold and the faint chemical scent from the years of discarded brochures, but I forced myself to ignore it. There was work to do. I rolled up my sleeves and booted up the ancient laptop he'd abandoned on the corner of a cluttered desk. It whirred to life, groaning with age. "Guess you're still hanging around?" I muttered, more to the laptop than anyone else. The screen flickered, and I clicked through folders labeled in Leo's meticulous handwriting. Campaign speeches, donor lists, policy drafts, but then one folder caught my eye. It wasn't labeled, just a string of numbers and letters, like a file he wanted no one to find. I hesitated. My thumb hovered over the trackpad. Curiosity won. The file opened to reveal a single image, a photograph so crisp and clear it almost startled me. I leaned in. My heart sank. The image was dated, but the high school graduation gowns and caps were unmistakable. And there, standing proudly in the center, was Leo. Beside him was a woman I recognized immediately, Vivian, his childhood friend. But it wasn't just them. Holding their hands, smiling shyly, was a teenage boy. And he looked exactly like Leo. I blinked, trying to reconcile the image with the years of trust one had given him. No, this can't be," I whispered to myself. My fingers traced the edge of the laptop screen. Metadata confirmed it. The photo had been taken 18 years ago. I swallowed hard. 18 years. And here I was, believing I had known him completely. My mind reeled as I realized the implications. He had hidden a fully grown son from me, a secret family that had existed throughout our entire relationship. Everything, the late nights, the campaign excuses, the vague explanations of unexplained trips, it all made a sickening kind of sense. Leo had built his life, his career, and his image around deception. I sank back in my chair, gripping the edge of the desk. My chest tightened, not from the mold, not from the chemical remnants, but from betrayal. I had been breathing in his lies for years, and now the truth had literally slapped me in the face. I knew I couldn't confront him. Not yet. The damage this revelation could do to his campaign, to the public, was enormous. And yet, I also knew I couldn't carry this alone. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, thinking of who could help me turn this toxic secret into something actionable. Then I thought of Elias Thorne. My mind raced. Ethical, fierce, and publicly opposed to Leo's corruption. If anyone could wield this information responsibly, it was him. I took a deep breath, clean and intentional, and made my decision. This was no longer just about betrayal. It was about truth. And I was reborn, ready to finally act. I stared at the photo on the screen for what felt like hours, though in reality, it was only a few minutes. Leo's smile, so familiar and trusted, now seemed like a mask I had been staring at for years. My stomach churned as I scrolled through the file's properties, double-checking every detail. Nothing was off. Metadata, timestamps, even the geotag confirmed it. This photo was genuine. 18 years, I whispered, shaking my head. 18 years, and I didn't know a thing. My fingers drummed nervously on the laptop, the sound echoing in the silent basement. I leaned back, my mind racing. How many lies had he spun around this secret? How many dinners, how many late nights, how many excuses had been part of this long, hidden life? I thought of all the times he had smiled and held my hand, reassured me, promised transparency. And now I knew none of it had been the whole truth. The cached photo had triggered something in me. I realized I could no longer be passive, that sitting in silence would allow his deception to continue unchecked. I needed action, and I needed it strategically. I opened a secure folder, a digital vault I had maintained precisely for sensitive situations like this. Copying the photo felt surreal, almost ritualistic, like I was taking back control piece by piece. Just then, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number flashed. "Are you okay? You've been offline for a while." I smiled weakly, knowing it was Elias checking in. He had always been observant, even before he became my ally in political matters. I typed quickly. I found something. We need to talk. Urgent. I paused, heart hammering. Could I trust anyone else with this? Could I even trust myself not to confront Leo in a moment of rage? I shook my head. No. Elias. He was calm, precise, and unafraid. He could help me wield this knowledge responsibly to turn it into action rather than revenge. I set up a secure connection and uploaded the cached photo along with a copy of the metadata, then sent a brief summary. This is Leo. Full secret family. 18 years. Financial implications likely. Need strategy. As I hit send, a cold clarity washed over me. The lung infection that had forced me to slow down, to breathe carefully, had opened more than just my lungs. It had cleared my head. I realized I could no longer inhale the lies around me, whether personal or professional. I was done compromising my health, my integrity, or my judgment for someone else's deception. I sank into my chair, taking slow, controlled breaths. I could still feel the chemical sting of betrayal in my chest, but it no longer paralyzed me. I was awake. I was alert. I was ready. And more than anything, I was reborn. I sat at my desk, the cached photo still open on my laptop, my fingers hovering above the keyboard. The revelation had shaken me, but I knew I couldn't act blindly. Leo's life had been a web of carefully spun deceit, and I needed to trace every strand before pulling the thread. 18 years, I whispered aloud, my voice trembling. 18 years of hidden truths, and you never thought I'd see them. I started with digital breadcrumbs, cross-referencing campaign finance reports, expense logs, and the occasional social media post. It was meticulous work, painstaking, but every entry brought clarity. I found minor inconsistencies in his declared consulting fees. Payments made to a property management company I hadn't noticed before. It was subtle, almost elegant in its deception. My phone buzzed. Elias. Juniper, his calm voice said, cutting through my thoughts. Have you started tracing the finances yet? Yes, I said, exhaling sharply. It's worse than I imagined. He's been funding Vivian's life discreetly, hiding it under company expenses. The photo confirms it. He's maintained this for nearly 2 decades. Elias was silent for a moment, calculating. This is bigger than just a secret family. If we expose it properly, we not only reveal the personal deception, we also unearth misuse of campaign funds. We can bring transparency to his political career before it's too late. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Exactly. But I need a way to do it without it backfiring. He's charming, manipulative, people still trust him. Leave that part to me, Elias said firmly. I know exactly how to handle political optics. Your job is to document everything and secure it. Nothing can be questioned. I felt a flicker of relief. For the first time since discovering the cached photo, I wasn't alone in this. Elias's experience in navigating political scandals complemented my meticulous approach. Together, we could dismantle the facade Leo had built. I went back to the laptop, scanning more files, comparing dates and locations. A small smile tugged at my lips when I discovered a tax filing that inadvertently listed an extra dependent under Vivian's name, clearly Leo's child. I muttered, "Gotcha." It wasn't just proof of the family anymore. It was proof of years of intentional concealment, combined with misuse of resources. Juniper. Elias's voice was patient but firm. Yes. Save everything. Back it up. And breathe. This is only the beginning. Once we have everything in place, we can hit him where it hurts, strategically. I nodded, tucking a loose strand of hair behind my ear. He was right. Panic would solve nothing. Methodical planning would. I leaned back in my chair, taking a long, deliberate breath. The lung infection I had suffered weeks ago had taught me the value of clarity in every inhale, every exhale. Now, that lesson applied beyond health. It applied to justice, to truth, to exposing deception without letting it consume me. For the first time in years, I felt the power of preparation, of controlled action. And for the first time, I felt ready to confront the storm that Leo had created. I was no longer just a witness. I was a strategist. I was reborn. I couldn't stop thinking about that photo, the one hidden in the depths of Leo's old laptop. It wasn't just a picture. It was the tip of an iceberg, a decade plus of lies frozen into a single frame. Every time I looked at it, I felt the weight of betrayal pressing against my chest. Juniper, are you ready for the next step? Elias's voice came over the phone, calm but commanding. I think so, I said, trying to steady my racing thoughts. I've traced the payments, the tax filings, everything points to Vivian and the child being funded indirectly through campaign and personal accounts. But it's messy. I need to make sure there's no room for doubt. Good, he said. Messy is fine. It's his mess, not yours. We just need the roadmap. I hung up and turned back to my laptop. I pulled up every document I could find, bank statements, campaign reimbursements, even travel records. Each new detail was like a stitch, slowly weaving the narrative of a life built on deceit. And then I saw it, a series of emails between Leo and a trusted accountant. He referred to educational expenses for the boy and Vivian's consulting fees, carefully masking the payments as legitimate campaign-related expenses. My jaw tightened. He really thought he was clever, I muttered to myself. I typed a quick message to Elias. Found more evidence. Emails showing deliberate misrepresentation of funds. Within minutes, he replied, Perfect. Save them in multiple formats. Timestamp everything. We can't let anything slip. I leaned back in my chair, trying to breathe. The lung infection from a few weeks ago still lingered in faint pangs, but I used that to focus, reminding myself how fragile life could be and how precious clarity was. Juniper. His voice again, steady and grounding. Yes. Make a timeline, he instructed. If we want this to stick, we need to show it chronologically. His deceit spans years, and the public needs to see that he's been consistently dishonest. Start with the birth, then school enrollments, then campaign funds. Everything must line up perfectly. I grabbed a notebook and began listing dates, cross-referencing the cached photo, the digital metadata, and the emails I had discovered. Piece by piece, the puzzle fell into place. The hidden family, the misuse of campaign funds, the carefully concealed life. All of it. Halfway through, I paused, overwhelmed. I couldn't believe I had been so blind for so long. Leo, the man I had trusted, had orchestrated this entire secret, right under my nose. But the anger was tempered by resolve. I wasn't helpless. I had the evidence. I had Elias. And together we were going to expose the truth. I stared at the timeline, feeling a sense of control I hadn't experienced in years. My lungs filled with air, steady and deliberate, as if each breath reinforced my clarity and purpose. I whispered to myself, This ends now. No more lies, no more half-truths. I am ready. And for the first time since discovering the photo, I felt the calm before the storm, the moment when preparation meets inevitability. I was ready to confront Leo, not as a victim, but as a force. The next morning, I met Elias in a quiet cafe near the edge of town. The place was almost empty, a small haven for serious conversations. I slid into the booth across from him, spreading the timeline, documents, and printouts of emails across the table. Juniper, he said, leaning back, his dark eyes scanning the evidence. This is solid. And it's enough to bring him down if we handle it correctly. I nodded, though my stomach twisted. The weight of what I was about to do was heavy, but it also felt like liberation. I've double-checked everything. Metadata, financial records, the cached photo, it all aligns. Leo's secret family, the diversion of funds, it's all traceable. There's no way he can spin it without lying outright. He tapped the timeline with a finger.
Exactly.
The key is sequencing. We reveal the personal first, the family and hidden child, then layer in the professional deceit. That way, the public sees the full scope. He's been dishonest at every level. I shivered slightly, partly from the cool air, partly from adrenaline. And the campaign funds? How do we tie those without appearing like we're just digging for dirt? Elias smiled faintly. It's about context. Show how the funds were misused for personal obligations, mortgage payments, private school tuition, disguised as campaign expenses. It's factual, traceable, and irrefutable. No editorializing, just pure evidence. I exhaled. I've also spoken to the accountant. They won't confirm publicly without legal pressure, but the emails are timestamped. I think that alone is enough. Good, he said, leaning forward. Next, we need a controlled release. Media outlets, legal coverage, everything timed perfectly. This isn't just about revenge. It's about ethics, transparency, and public accountability. I nodded again, feeling the fire inside me shift from anger to precision. I'll handle the sequence and the documentation. You coordinate the legal and media angles. Exactly, Elias said. Juniper, this is where your expertise comes in. You know the data. You've traced every file. You're the anchor for the truth. I felt a flicker of pride. For the first time, I wasn't helpless. I wasn't gaslit or misled. I was leading the operation. The clarity that hit me during my illness, that realization about toxic environments and hidden dangers, had prepared me for this moment. And one more thing, Elias added, voice lowering. We keep this tight. No leaks. Leo's network is extensive. One misstep and he could spin it, intimidate sources, or bury the story. I understand, I said, gripping my coffee cup until my knuckles whitened. No mistakes. He gave a small, approving nod. Good. This isn't just about exposing him, it's about protecting yourself too. Once the truth comes out, he won't be able to touch you or manipulate the narrative. I let the weight of that sink in. For years, I had inhaled the toxicity of Leo's lies, the slow suffocation of deceit. Now, I was finally exhaling, preparing to let the clean air of truth flow freely. Then let's begin, I said, voice steady. It's time the city sees the real forecast. No more storms hidden behind clouds. Elias smiled faintly. Exactly. And this time, Juniper, we chase the storm together, and we make sure it's the one that clears the skies. And as we gathered our papers and files, I felt the first genuine breeze of freedom brush against my face. By mid-morning, the plan was set into motion. I sat in my home office, screens spread out in organized chaos, carefully scheduling the release of the files Elias and I had compiled. The tension in my chest was sharp, but for the first time in years, it felt purposeful. I was no longer breathing in the fumes of lies. I was directing the wind of truth. Juniper, you there? Elias's voice came through the secure line. Yes, I replied, my fingers hovering over the final keyboard commands. Everything is queued. The cached photo goes first, then the financial misappropriation. Media outlets are briefed on verification. Perfect. Timing is everything. One slip, and he could spin this. Remember, keep it tight, he said. I leaned back, eyes narrowing on the screens. No leaks. I triple-checked every secure link. It's airtight. There was a pause, then Elias said, softer this time. Juniper, how are you holding up? I swallowed hard. It's strange. I feel lighter, but also exposed. It's like standing in a storm, but this time I'm the one holding the anemometer, not being swept away by the wind. He chuckled faintly. I like that metaphor. And remember, storms clear the skies. What comes next is clarity, not chaos. I exhaled and clicked send. The first email, containing the high school photo of Leo and Vivian with the fully grown son, went to the journalist network we trusted. Notifications pinged almost immediately, screens lighting up with curiosity, skepticism, and anticipation. My heart raced. They're opening it, Elias said calmly. Hold steady. Let the truth breathe before commentary begins. I leaned forward, watching the first online article appear. The headline hit like lightning. City Councilman Leo Hayes' hidden family revealed. Secret son spans 2 decades. The article displayed the cached photo, metadata, and initial commentary verifying authenticity. I exhaled, almost laughing. It's real. It's actually happening. Good. Now prepare the follow-up, Elias said. Financial misappropriation. Show the funds, the mortgage payments, the consulting disguises. Tie it to the personal deceit. This is the part that leaves no room for spinning. I opened the next folder, checking every line of evidence. Ready, I said. I clicked, sending the next tranche of documents to the same network. Within minutes, headlines were updated. The public could see, clearly, that the personal and professional betrayals were intertwined. Elias's voice softened again. Juniper, you did this. You controlled the forecast. You directed the storm. I felt a rush of something I hadn't felt in years. Validation, power, and relief. And now, I said quietly, we watch as the clouds finally clear. Not just the clouds, Elias said, but the air you breathe, Juniper.
Clean. Honest.
Yours. I leaned back, letting my chest rise and fall in deep breaths. The storm was breaking, but I wasn't afraid. For the first time, I was seeing clearly. The lies no longer dictated my life. The toxicity was gone. And somewhere in that clarity, I realized I had found something else too, someone who matched my pace, my honesty, my courage. The city would see the storm, but I had already walked through it and stepped out stronger on the other side. The next morning, the city was buzzing in ways I hadn't imagined. My phone hadn't stopped vibrating since the expose went live. News alerts, calls from colleagues, texts from strangers, and curious glances from neighbors. It was all happening at once. I sat at my desk, letting it wash over me, and for the first time, I felt steady. Elias's call came right on schedule. Juniper, you've made headlines across the city. Everyone's talking about the photo and the financials. How are you holding up? I exhaled slowly. I won't lie, it's intense. But I haven't felt this clarity in years. It's like finally breathing clean air after decades in a smoke-filled room.
Good.
That clarity is your power. And it's about to extend further. The council is convening an emergency session. Leo's campaign is in shambles and your evidence is solid. The city deserves accountability. I nodded to myself, though he couldn't see me. I know. And I'm ready. This time, I'm not afraid to stand at the front. By late morning, I received my first direct confrontation. A local reporter had arrived at my apartment, camera in hand. Ms. Voss, she said, excitement and caution warring in her voice. Can you comment on these revelations? How did you uncover them? I straightened in my chair, a calm smile forming. All I can say is that sometimes, seeing the truth requires persistence and honesty. And sometimes, the truth is hiding in plain sight. She frowned slightly. Are you worried about repercussions? For yourself? I shook my head.
No.
I've spent too long inhaling lies and staying silent. Now, I breathe my own air, and I'll answer for the truth, not for deception. Later, Elias arrived at my apartment, suit impeccable, face calm but eyes sharp. Juniper, he said, the campaign staff is trying damage control. Leo is scrambling. The evidence is overwhelming. You've shifted the narrative completely. I laughed softly, relief mingling with a flicker of triumph. I never thought I'd feel this light, even with everything exploding around me. He raised an eyebrow. Exploding? Maybe. But controlled explosions, Juniper. We orchestrated this. Every piece in place. You controlled the storm, and now the aftermath is on your terms. I leaned back, letting his words sink in.
And you?
You stayed the course with me through all this. Elias smiled, almost imperceptibly. I believe in truth. And I believe in those who act on it. You proved both. That's why I stayed. I felt a warmth I hadn't expected. Amid the chaos, the media frenzy, and the political upheaval, I realized I wasn't alone. Not anymore. Not with Elias. Together, we weren't just exposing lies. We were setting a foundation for something honest, resilient, and unshakable. The city watched the storm unravel. I watched too, but from the front lines, with steady breath, clear eyes, and a partner who understood that truth was the only real forecast worth following. The morning after the election fallout, the air felt different.
Crisp. Clean.
I stepped outside and took a long, deep breath, feeling it fill every corner of my lungs. It wasn't just the spring air. It was the first breath I'd taken in years that wasn't tainted by lies or half-truths. Elias was beside me, his hand brushing mine, steady and reassuring. "You look lighter," he said softly, a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. I laughed, the sound unguarded, almost foreign after months of tension. "I feel lighter and stronger." I never realized how heavy deception could weigh until I freed myself from it. He nodded. "You acted when it mattered. And now the city, the council, everyone, Leo's political facade is gone. Transparency won. And you, Juniper, you're free." I looked at him, gratitude and admiration swirling in my chest. "And I couldn't have done it without you. You didn't just help me expose the truth. You reminded me why it's worth standing for." Elias squeezed my hand. "We did this together. That's the difference between surviving a storm alone and thriving through it with someone who shares the skies with you." Later, we walked to the campaign office, now empty, a quiet monument to a past I no longer belonged to. Photographs of Leo shaking hands with supporters, press releases, and campaign posters were still pinned to corkboards, but the energy that once pulsed through this space had vanished. It was the kind of silence that felt like promise. I paused in the middle of the room, letting the magnitude sink in. "All of it," I murmured, "was built on lies. And now we get to build something real.
Clean.
Honest." Elias put his hand on my shoulder.
Exactly.
"And you've learned something essential. Integrity isn't just a word you read in reports. It's the foundation you stand on every day. You've claimed it, Juniper." As the council announced the investigation into Leo's misuse of funds and personal deception, I felt a lightness that extended beyond the political victory. For the first time, I wasn't reacting. I was choosing my path deliberately, grounded in truth, and guided by my own instincts. Elias leaned closer, voice soft and unwavering. "Juniper, look at us. No masks, no secrets, just clarity, just us." I met his gaze, feeling a swell of certainty. "Just us," I echoed, smiling. The weight of the past, the suffocating shadows of Leo's lies, had lifted completely. Later that evening, under a sky streaked with the pale gold of sunset, Elias and I stood together, hands entwined, ready for what came next. I realized that survival was no longer enough. I wanted thriving, truth, and partnership built on respect. And finally, I understood. Honesty wasn't just a principle, it was freedom. It was love without smoke. And in that clarity, I had everything I'd ever needed. The forecast was clear. And for the first time in years, it was entirely mine to follow.